So you're building a budget gaming PC, but you've got to put a cooler in it. This is where you'll be looking at budget coolers, maybe even something like an Intel stock cooler. That is where something like this comes in. This is a £10 cooler and it's called the Snowman. It has 2 heat pipes, but does it cool better than something like an Intel stock cooler? Let's find out in this video. If you like the video, please consider subscribing and turning on that notification bell, as it will keep you up to date with all my uploads, and it does help out quite a bit here on the channel too. Many of you have probably heard of the Snowman cooler, as it is pretty popular in the budget PC building space. This one is the 2 heat pipe variant, but there are also a 4 heat pipe variant and a 6 heat pipe variant too. Obviously they have better cooling capabilities. But the 2 heat pipe variant does have support for newer sockets like AM4, AM5 and even LGA 1700. So this thing has a lot of support, which something like the Intel stock cooler does not have. So this is a win in my book. I bought 4 of these brand new, which knocked the price down to around £10 per unit, which is roughly the same amount as a brand new Intel stock cooler. So let's see how this thing performs against one. One concern I do have about this is it arrived in very questionable packaging. If I'm honest, the packaging was not good at all. The cooler was just like loose in the box, but it doesn't have any scuffs or any dents or anything like that, and it's in a pretty good condition if I'm honest. Everyone knows the trusty old Intel stock cooler, maybe for the wrong reasons. It's never been designed to be the best cooler in the world, and it's never been received as the best cooler in the world either. The Intel stock cooler I have here is one of the better ones actually, as this one has a copper slug. Yes, this was before Intel started cheaping out majorly on their coolers. But this is the cooler that you'll find with a lot of office PCs, for instance the £65 gaming PC, which I bought quite a while ago now, it was a few months ago. This arrived with this cooler in it. So yeah, this is pretty much the bog standard cooler for most, if not all, office PCs. So to compare both the stock cooler and the Snowman cooler, I have put them into my upgraded £65 PC. The specs are an i5 3470, 8GB of DDR3 memory, a 450 watt power supply from CIT, a Radeon RX 570 Sapphire ITX 4GB graphics card, and a generic LGA 1155 motherboard. If I'm honest, I have no idea what brand it is, but it's a decent board. I left the side panel off mainly for convenience while swapping out the coolers, and each time I applied fresh Arctic MX4 thermal paste with both the Intel stock cooler and the Snowman cooler too. As I said previously, the Snowman cooler has one up on the Intel stock cooler, as it has a wider range of socket compatibility. It supports both AMD sockets including AM4 and AM5, and it also supports Intel sockets including LGA 1700 as well. Now switching to the testing that really matters, and that is the cooling performance, because let's be honest, you buy a cooler based on its ability to cool your processor. At idle we see a reduction of 6 degrees C on the Snowman. This is pretty substantial in my opinion. Temperatures were taken 5 minutes after booting into Windows to let the CPU cool down a bit after booting. I think this is pretty substantial in my opinion. Yes, it is idle temperatures, but 6 degrees C while idle is pretty big in my opinion. Cinebench R23 is one of the best tools for stress testing a CPU, not only for stability but for temps too. The Snowman decisively beat out the Intel stock cooler by 13 degrees C, only reaching up to 61 C under a sustained load. I did notice the voltages on the Snowman were running slightly hotter at 1.096 volts compared to the 1.086 volts on the Intel stock cooler run, but I think a difference of 10 millivolts probably wouldn't have made a massive difference if I'm honest. This may be down to the i5 running at 74 degrees C with the Intel stock cooler in Cinebench, so it might have dropped down the voltage ever so slightly, but I don't think this is going to massively skew the result anyway. So yeah, either way, the Snowman is performing a lot better than the Intel stock cooler here. During gaming, a CPU works hard, but not as hard as Cinebench, and the game I decided to test was F122 as it had a looping benchmark, which makes my testing a lot easier if I'm honest. And with an RX 570 4GB with GPU bound instead of CPU bound, because if you watch my upgrading the £65 PC, you'd know that we were CPU bound in a lot of games, but I am working on another video for that where I'm upgrading the i5 to an i7 3770, so make sure you stay subscribed for that. Anyways, back to the cooling performance, and the Snowman saw a reduction of 12 degrees C over the stock cooler, maxing out at 59 degrees C during gaming. This is quite huge. If you compare 71 degrees C to 59 degrees C, that is a massive drop, and it just gives you a bit more headroom to say, if you've got a bad case with bad airflow, something like that, the Snowman has a higher headroom for the CPU. From that cooling performance data, I can conclusively say the Snowman is a better cooler. Not only when it comes to cooling though, but in terms of the mount, its socket support is just a whole ton better than the Intel stock cooler. The Intel stock cooler is probably one of the worst coolers ever to mount. I absolutely hate the mounting mechanism of it. But this Snowman cooler has a relatively good mount on it. It's got these sort of like AMD clips, which I usually don't like, but they go on very easily if I'm honest. It mounts very easily to the CPU, and I've just had no issues with mounting this thing, unlike an Intel stock cooler. Maybe that's just me. With both of these coolers going for £10, I can conclusively say the Snowman is a better buy. It cools a lot better, it mounts a lot better, and I think, in my opinion, it looks a lot better. It's not the best looking CPU cooler ever in the world, but it's not as ugly looking as that awful looking Intel stock cooler. So if you have a non-K-SKU i3, i5 or even an i7, so that's a 65 watt TDP chip, this cooler will have no trouble cooling it at all in pretty much every single case out there. So yeah, if you've got a budget gaming PC with a relatively low wattage CPU and you're struggling to choose between this cooler or an Intel stock cooler, get the Snowman and you'll be gaming just fine. So with that being said, like the video if you liked it, stay subscribed for more tech content because I have a ton on the way, and I'll catch you in the next one.